Welcome to the Just Women Sports podcast, where we talk to the biggest athletes in the world about the untold stories behind their success. I'm Kelley O'Hara, and my guest today is Kat Osterman. Kat, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
I'm excited to have you on. People will find out after this, but we have a mutual friend, large person in our life,
Right.
if you want to call it that, in an agent. We both have the same agent, which is kind of funny because Ken doesn't have a ton of clients, but it's cool to be connected that way to somebody. Where are you right now? You're outside of Chicago?
Yeah, so we're in Rosemont, Illinois, kind of up by O'Hare Airport. When the NPF was going on, the city of Rosemont built an amazing softball facility.
Okay, cool.
And so we're running out of there right now.
Got it. And NPF stands for
National Pro Fast Pitch. So that was our, they're still going, professional league that I played in for 8 years before deciding to take a little bit of a break.
Got it. Yeah, people, we have to go through all the acronyms because sports, I have come to realize, has so many that you just don't even realize until you are talking to people who don't maybe know sports as well. And then it's just all acronyms. Yeah. But I'm excited to talk to you today. And we're just going to start off going back to where it all started for you, back to the beginning. You were born and raised in Houston, Texas. What was your early childhood like, and how would you say you were first introduced to sports in general?
I played sports as soon as I think I could walk and hold balls and kick balls and everything else. So grew up in a family that loves basketball. My dad's from Southern Illinois, and so football wasn't really something we had on the TV when I was growing up. But as soon as I was capable of playing sports, I was in sports. Funny, I actually was in soccer for a long time. Was a pretty good goalie from what everyone tells me, but I got really bored being a goalie. So I said, no, I need to go find something else to do.
Did you start soccer first? Like, which sport was your first?
Yeah, soccer was first.
Okay.
Soccer was first. We introduced basketball in third grade.
Okay.
When we could play with the YMCA, and then softball, actually, I played 1 year in like first or second grade and didn't like it and quit, and then went back to it when I got bored from standing in the goal. So
really?
Yeah. So I picked up softball again, probably in about fifth grade. And that's when I started pitching though. Like the first time I was just, everybody, like the 5-year-old picking flowers out in the outfield or something.
Yeah, I was about to say, 5-year-old softball must be off of a tee, right?
Yeah. Well, that was the problem, so they put first through fifth graders on the same team because they had just leagues had divided. Okay. And so they didn't have enough teams. I'm like, first and fifth grade, that's a big maturity gap there. Mm-hmm. So of course the first graders were all out in the outfield picking flowers and chasing butterflies. So
Got it.
It was a little intimidating. So I was like, not for me right now. Thanks.
Weren't into it. That's so funny that you essentially quit the sport that you ended up being uber successful in later on in life as like 5-year-old.
Yeah. And I really went back to it just because I was like, I don't think I want to play soccer anymore. I don't really like being goalie. And obviously they didn't think I could do anything else because they would like, oh, at halftime you can play midfield or whatever. And I would be like, okay. And then at halftime they'd be like, oh, the game's really close. We need you to stay in the goal. I'm like, great, thanks.
That's hilarious.
So yeah, when I said that, my dad was like, okay, well, what do you want to do? He's like, you already play basketball in the winter. What do you want to do? And I was like, I don't know. He's like, do you want to try softball again? And I was like, sure, we can try that.
Was it the type of thing where your parents were like, no, you got to be doing a sport basically every season?
Pretty much. Yeah. Pretty much. I can't remember a season without a sport, to be honest.
Same. Did you do anything else besides softball, basketball, and soccer?
I played volleyball in junior high, and then my freshman year of high school, ended up I quitting leading that just because competitive softball was playing in the fall. So it was like I had to balance too much, and I was like, if I'm going to go play softball in college, I might as well just go ahead and leave volleyball behind. Ran track in junior high. I liked long distance running, so that part was, I would have been a perfect soccer player if they would have let me try it.
No kidding. That's so funny that they didn't let you, because I feel like most people don't like long distance. Like the thing people hate about playing soccer is that you have to run so much.
Yeah. I don't, but now that I'm older, I'm like, I don't know how you guys run 5 miles a game for like one goal. That's just too much.
The return on investment isn't that high sometimes. That's for sure. So you quit as a 5-year-old, you came back to it as a 5th grader, and that's when you started to get into pitching. And what was the thing about pitching that you fell in love with?
I fell in love with it from the first time I got to try it, to be honest. I think some of it is being so active. Obviously, we have to throw every pitch for the game to proceed. But I think it was just the challenge of, hitting a good spot or getting the ball. Well, the first time would probably have been just getting the ball over the plate to where it made someone swing. But Little League had rules where pitchers could only pitch so many innings, and the other 2 on our team had because of rainouts and stuff being made up, they had met their innings. And so our coach was like, who wants to try to pitch? And I was the first person to raise my hand and be like, I'll try it. Never having done it. Yeah. And then did it, and after the game, asked my dad, I was like, I think I want to pitch. I want pitching lessons. I want to learn how to do this. And
so when you raised your hand to say, I'll try it, you had never pitched before. Did you just go off of watching what everyone else was doing and say, oh, I can just mimic their actions?
Pretty much.
That's fascinating.
Let me do something other than stand at first or in the outfield. And yeah, just, figure out how to get your arm in a circle and throw it there. And, but yeah, after that, my dad said that game, he's like, you came off the field and beaming ear to ear and was just like, this is what I want to do. So
that's so cool.
Yeah. So for my 11th birthday, I asked for pitching lessons. Like I didn't want anything other than to be able to go to pitching lessons.
That's amazing. So you really did it was love at first pitch, essentially.
Yep. It truly was.
And it's such a technical, technique, which makes me sound stupid for saying it like that. But, so you immediately got into lessons and started to work on that technical side of the game. Do you love that part of it, learning and kind of fine tuning, and mastering that skill?
Yeah. So I started lessons right away. My dad and I practiced for a little while before I ever got back in another game. He didn't let me go try again.
Really? Wait, he was like, you can't pitch again until we practice more?
Yeah. So part of it was that was my pitching coach's philosophy too. He was like, we're going to pitch and get technique right before you go back in a game and, change your mechanics just to try to get the ball over the plate. So I practiced for a while and I loved it. I did. And you hit the nail on the head. It's trying to master every little part of it. It's trying to be as perfect as possible, even though, we can't be perfect every single pitch. When I was young, it was about, what mechanics can I change or fix to be better? And then obviously as you get older, you start throwing pitches that move and change speeds and this and that. And just being able to try to master those and control those as perfectly as possible was it was a game. It was so fun for me. And it still is. 37, I'm still trying to make this ball move and miss bats. So
right. I know. It's so funny as you get older in your sport. For me, I'm the same way. I'm like, I love mastering or feeling like I can get as close to perfection as possible. Because you never will be perfect, but you can strive towards excellence, as sometimes we've said on this podcast. But so at what point do you feel like you realized you had it and you could go super far and also decided this is what I want to do? So
probably about 14 is when I knew I wanted to play in college, and I had talked to my dad about it. And there's no real reason why I fell in love with the University of Texas as a 4th or 5th grader at some point in time. I think in Texas, you just decide you're either a Longhorn or an Aggie at some point in life.
And you have to do it pretty early. It seems.
And my parents
a 5th
having
grader, you decided?
Right. Nope. And my parents having no ties to either. It was like, oh, well, I'm going to be a Longhorn. I just remember getting this purplish gray Longhorn shirt for Christmas, and it was the best Christmas present ever. And I'm like, why did I choose that of all things at that point in time? But
that is super funny. You can't pinpoint what it was. Was it?
No,
it wasn't the Longhorns or something?
No, I wasn't even big at softball yet. I have no idea. I really don't. So I had, at 13, 14, I had talked to my dad about wanting to play in college. If he thought I could be good enough to walk on somewhere, if that was going to be, would we be able to make that work? And so that's kind of the thought process started as far as, putting the process in place for the future. And then I think the biggest kind of, I was being recruited already. So when the recruiting carousel started, when I was in my summer between junior and senior year, there was obviously a lot of interest from a lot of schools across country. And so that was kind of the first, okay, we've made it moment. I think my dad thought, we would get some interest from some schools, but when the letters started coming in, it was just like, oh, all right, this is a different level.
Yeah, well, you just said you guys, your first conversation was about if you could walk on.
Yep.
Which is crazy.
I know. It's crazy to think about because I asked him at one point, I specifically remember a girl from our area had gone to Texas, and I had asked my dad, like, do you think I could be good enough to walk on at Texas? Because she's going there. And he was like, I think you can be that good, but he's like, we'll keep working. And that was my dad. My dad was like, oh, I'm sure you probably have similar stories. Like, you might have performed well, but we could have done something better. And it's not the demeaning talk, but it's just like you need to keep working talk. I tell people all the time, I gave up, I think 500 home runs in the driveway because he'd be like, oh, so-and-so hit that one. Oh, so-and-so hit that one. And
you would just smash it against you.
Yeah. And I'm like, all right, thanks, Dad. And then when I was 17 was kind of the big aha moment for me. I got to play against the 2000 Olympic team as they toured before going to Sydney.
Okay.
And I pitched 5 innings, allowed 1 hit, and struck out 11. Yeah.
As a high schooler against Team USA?
As a high schooler, yeah. And that was kind of...
Okay, I was going to say, that had to have been like, all right.
Yeah. That was I left that and looked at my dad. I was like, okay, I want to be on that team one day. And he was like, okay, I think you could do that.
That is
keep working.
So cool. Yeah, exactly. You could do that, but keep working. So was that your first time that you thought, oh, I want to be on Team USA. I want to go to the Olympics?
Yeah, we had gone to see them play their exhibition game in '96 in Houston. And it was like, oh, cool, softball's in the Olympics, but still just a little bit too young and still in my kind of developmental phase of softball for that to be like an actual dream. But then after 2000, I was like, yep, there it is.
Yeah, those are pretty impressive stats as a high schooler against a fully professional, the best women in the country for the sport.
It was insane. I still remember the game to this day, and it's just like adrenaline high, emotions, and like every strikeout you would have thought we just like won the game because I was so excited. I mean, you didn't expect, it was win-win as far as you get this experience, and
totally.
If you lose, you're supposed to, it's okay. But every strikeout, I was just jumping for joy. And I know I got my invite to the national program the next summer. And really? I remember some of the girls were like, you were so cocky. You were so, and I'm like, that was called like pure bliss. I was like, I didn't expect to even like strike out any of you, yet alone 11. So I was like, it was a really cool experience though.
Yeah, I'm sure. I also read that in one high school game, you struck out 33 batters in 14 innings, which is just insane. It set a national record for strikeouts in a game less than 20 innings. Do you remember that game?
I do. I think I also scored the winning run in the 14th inning.
No way.
Yeah, that was in high school. We were playing Cy-Fair, which was actually one of our rivals. They were historically very good in softball. And yeah, that was the first club team I ever played on. My coach's daughter played on that team, and another, like 2 or 3 of the girls played on that team. So it was always fun playing against them because I was playing against some of my former teammates. And they were good. And yeah, that was a long game. Like that's one of those,
sounds like it.
We go extra innings and then you're like, okay, maybe we'll go to 10. And then after 10, you're like, okay, somebody can score. Anybody can score. Can we figure this out?
Somebody end it.
Yeah. So yeah, it's at 14 innings, essentially 2 games back to back.
Yeah, that's wild. So at what point did you commit to Texas?
So
how old were you?
Yeah, it was the fall of my senior year.
Okay.
So recruiting was kind of, I say the old calendar, the normal calendar that most people did. So we took our visits at the beginning of our senior year, and then we committed usually by October because signing day was in November. And so I took 2 of my 5 visits, canceled 2. But that same team that played the Olympic team, 6 of us ended up going to Texas together. So
no way.
Yeah, it was a pretty cool experience to be able
Yeah.
to stay with that many friends. But I loved Texas when I visited. My dad had taken me up there to college games once I got serious about softball, and it was just an atmosphere I loved. And I think more importantly, I was still home in Texas, but I was also far enough away from home that, you know, mom and dad couldn't just drop in for lunch or come check on me all the time.
For sure. So going into Texas, or into your career at Texas, how was the team before you got there?
So 1 year, they were 2 years removed from going to the World Series for the first time.
Okay.
So they were a young program, but Krista Williams, who is an Olympian from Houston as well, had transferred from UCLA to Texas after her freshman year. And so she had taken them to the World Series, I think in their third or fourth year.
Okay.
And then she actually opted out of her senior year to try to kind of go the endorsement route with the Olympic team. And so then there's 1 year in between us, and then I started. So they were good.
Yeah. But
they were still up and coming. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So you guys were kind of filling in and like creating what could become something great.
Yeah, for sure.
And when you arrived your freshman year, you were second team All-American and Big 12 Pitcher of the Year right off the bat. Did you expect to be that successful immediately getting into the college game?
Honestly, I had no idea. I think, you know, you're confident because you have a great club career, and no one really knows what the next level is until you get to the next level. And my first weekend out was terrible. Thankfully, my dad last minute flew to the tournament, or else I probably may not have gotten on the plane to go home. But it was one of those things that you're in the moment and you just kind of are trying to buy into everything everyone's feeding you, you know, coaches, strength trainer, all of it. And definitely didn't expect to be that successful early. But at the same time, having my national team experience from the summer prior to entering college, also knew that I had something. If they selected me on that team, that I had something, and I just needed to figure out how to, you know, adjust to the next level.
So that was definitely being called into Team USA leading into your freshman year was probably a huge confidence boost.
It was, huge confidence, huge learning experience.
Yeah.
Obviously I was the only high schooler, and I think there was only one girl who had just been a freshman. Everyone else was like a sophomore or older, and, you know, just trying to pick their brains and learn and figure out what it is I'm going to have to face off at as soon as I get to school.
Yeah. Absorb as much as possible being one of the younger ones. Well, you not only threw the first perfect game in UT history, you threw 3 of them your freshman year, which set a national record for freshmen, which goes along with your amazing transition from club to college. Can you explain to listeners what a perfect game is?
Yeah. So perfect game, basically 7 innings, 21 outs. No one gets on base. No hits, no walks, no hit by pitches. You have to credit your defense too, because no errors for balls that are put in play. And it's really freaking hard to do. But yeah, I remember the first one because I knew, obviously, as the game ended, knew what we had a perfect game. Like when you start to think about what did hitters do, and it was like, oh, they announced it but like no one celebrated or anything. Like it was it was a doubleheader. So it was the first game of doubleheader. We were all like just filing into the dugout to go to the locker room, and
no one celebrated.
The announcer then came on and said, oh, that was the first perfect game in UT history. And, you know, then the stands clapped. So the coach was like, go back out there and go wave.
That's crazy.
But yeah, I didn't know it was the first one in history until he said that. So,
okay.
So it was pretty cool though. Especially as a freshman. I remember I didn't expect to do that. I opened everyone gets the media guide, and I opened it to the records page when I was a freshman, and I looked at whatever the career strikeout record was, and I was like, Dad, that's what I'm aiming at.
That's cool.
Yeah. I set a goal, and then obviously I surpassed it by quite a bit.
Yeah, just a little bit, I'm sure. So for instance, okay, I thought that anytime a batter was at bat and they hit the ball, that counted as a hit, but it only counts if they get on base.
Yes.
Correct? Okay.
Correct.
Yeah. So that's why, like, a perfect game, you might not throw strikeouts. They might hit the ball, but like you said, you have to credit your defense. And it's obviously a big credit to the pitcher as well, because you're doing so much work. Just thought people will hopefully think that's funny and not think I'm a complete idiot for thinking that.
People do it all the time.
Yeah.
In fact, I love, like, my stepdaughter plays, and sometimes she'll be like, well, I hit it, but they threw me out at first, or I got a hit, but they threw me out at first. I'm like, all right, no, we put the ball in play. We had a good at bat.
Do you tell her, like, no, that isn't a hit?
Or like, I'm like, let's learn terminology.
Exactly. It's important. Makes sense. As a pitcher, how conscious are you of the fact that you're close to, or you're, in the moment you're pitching a perfect game? Is it like, what does your internal dialogue look like doing that?
Usually I'm pretty good at remembering what hitters do, so I usually know what's going on. But I don't start thinking about it probably till like the 5th inning, because there's just
so much game.
Second, third, 4th inning, there's still so much game left.
Yeah.
So it's about the 5th inning that I start looking at it, and it's like, all right, can we make this work? Excuse me. But but it's not internal dialogue as much as, like, when you go out for the 7th. In college, we had, like, if we yelled "get dirty," everyone knew, like, a no-hitter or a perfect game was on the line. Like, we're going all out for every play that we can.
I love that. Get dirty. That's amazing.
So it was fun. But they're intense moments too, because you're, like, really trying not to give up the hit, but then at the same time you can't be too tense and, like, try to be too perfect, because then you're going to walk somebody, and that just opens up a whole nother door and usually snowballs into a negative effect anyways. So.
Oh yeah, because if you walk somebody, then it's not a perfect game. Oh my God. Yeah, perfect game's insane. Thinking about it, I've never really sat and thought about what goes into that. That's crazy.
Yep.
Wow. Okay, well, your sophomore year, you just got better, which is also crazy to think about. I'm going to read some highlights. You led the nation in ERA and strikeout ratio. I'm going to have you explain these things. And in your second season at Texas, you broke the school's career record for strikeouts, which you had just said you went into freshman year wanting to break, and you broke it your sophomore year. No big deal. Shutouts and wins. So you broke all those records your sophomore year. And then first team All-American and USA Softball Collegiate Player of the Year. And then you made your first trip to the College World Series that year, where you tied a World Series record with 17 strikeouts against Cal. So I feel like, I mean, you obviously had a prolific freshman year, but then sophomore year, you just exploded even more. Yeah. Was there something that, like, were you just building on your freshman year, or was it like some, switch flipped? Walk me through freshman to sophomore year.
Yeah. So I benefited again. Like, I had national team every summer in between all my years of college. That's when everyone's like, oh, do you get summer vacation? I'm like, if you call playing softball vacation, then yes.
Yeah, exactly. I know. I can't remember. Yeah. I never had summer, never had spring break, except for maybe once. It's
right.
Like,
exactly. Same thing. And so I was building on freshman year to sophomore year. I had the national team in the middle, learned some things during that summer, just in kind of just like how to place my pitches a little better when hitters move in the box, different pitch calling philosophy, that kind of stuff. And just starting to be, again, more it's just more confidence built. And so by the end of my sophomore year, I was really confident in knowing what my best pitches were, when I needed to throw them. So a lot of people, there's young pitchers that don't want to shake off because they don't want to have to think about the way they're pitching and how they're setting up pitches. And I was
shake off. Explain that to the listeners, because I think I know what it is. It's when you say, no, I don't want that pitch.
Right.
When the catcher's telling you something.
Yeah. So most of the time the pitching coach is giving the catcher the signal and the catcher's giving it to the pitcher. And so that's where a lot of times in college pitchers are like, well, my coach knows better, so they just throw it. Okay. But for me, if I'm not completely convicted in the pitch, I'm not gonna throw it. And so there were times that I probably shook off more than most pitchers at that age. But I was confident in what I could throw. So I just know there were a number of times that I just went with my gut as opposed to probably on paper what looked like it would work.
Yeah. That's cool. I like that. I feel like that's a very mature characteristic to have as a college player, to just trust, like, I know what I can do.
Yeah. And I think, being able to play in the USA program gave me that. Like, if I didn't have that, I don't know that I have that same confidence. But
for sure,
in the national program, it's just pitcher catcher working. So it's like, I do have more control and more input into what we're throwing. And so when you come from that element, and then now it's like, okay, well, I know this works because I've done it already. So
wait, so at the national team level, the coach isn't giving the pitching signal?
No. So at national team level, we have film sessions, scouting reports, charts from years past, whatever it is, and we go over all that. And then based on, who's throwing, and the catcher calls the game.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Didn't know that. I would have thought that the coach still had some sort of input in that.
Every now and then before we go out for an inning, if there's a certain hitter we need to key on or something, he would give us, like, let's stay away to this hitter. Or, when we say they're an ambusher, they're a first pitch swinger. He'll be like, they'll ambush the inside if we go there first. And we're like, okay. So like, he gives us little tidbits here and there, but so it's different. Some colleges let their catchers call the game. By the halfway through my junior year, my catcher was calling my game at Texas.
And is that you create this relationship with your catcher, and it's just kind of, I feel like it's the same way you work for me, like with the back line, like, or the player playing in the position in front of me. You just have this connection and you understand each other, and it's working through that.
Yeah. Yeah. So my junior year, I got a new catcher. So freshman year, the girl who caught was a junior. So she graduated.
Okay.
We got a new one in the year I redshirted for the Olympics. And so my junior year, I worked with Megan Willis for the first time. And we are polar opposites when you talk about personality, but we instantly clicked as far as working in the bullpen and pitch calling and all of that. So I was fortunate. She actually caught me for about 10 years, 2 in college and then pro ball for 8 or 9.
So you guys established that early on, and
we did. We just
ride.
Clicked, and she was smart. I think that's the other thing, is obviously she took pride in the catching position. So she was super smart about, when hitters move in the box, whether they move up or back, or if they move off the plate, on the plate. And she would look at that, point it out, and then call a pitch based on what hitters were doing. And
God, I love all the nuances in the different sports. Like, as just a casual fan, I would never think that, the catcher is looking at the way the hitter is like approaching or positioning themselves on the plate.
Yeah.
And that's determining what they're going to do.
Yeah.
I'm going to look at that way more.
It's fun. You should.
I will.
It's fun. It's a fun part, because then, you can, a lot of times you can tell if hitters are comfortable or not, because if they're not comfortable, they'll try to move like mid pitch. If they're comfortable, then they feel in themselves and have confidence. They usually stay in one place of the box. But
got it.
Based on where they stand, a lot of times we'll change our game plan if we need to.
That makes sense. So your signature pitch is a drop ball. Is that correct?
Yes. Yep.
Can you explain what that is?
So for baseball fans, it's kind of similar to a sinker, except for a little bit sharper. Baseball and softball pitches don't equate at all. So when we say a curveball and they say a curveball, they are like 2 totally different pitches.
Okay.
So if you combine their curveball and a sinker, is kind of like what our drop ball would look like. So for me, it's like coming probably about 3-4 inches. I'm trying to aim 3-4 inches above the knees and then let it break. And when it breaks, it'll probably be right below the kneecaps. It's a fun pitch to watch people swing over.
Yeah, I was gonna say, that's probably such a good feeling to be like, oh, I got you.
Yeah. Oh, it is. The strikeouts might be I try to teach kids, just make good pitches. And meanwhile, I'm over here trying to strike everyone out, because it's just fun. Get some fist pumps afterwards when they're big outs and stuff like that. But so my drop ball I can place it different heights. So if I want it for a strike, I just aim 3 or 4 inches above the knee. But then obviously, as the count works in my favor, where I'm ahead, I'll be able to take it lower off the plate, that kind of stuff. So,
do you think that what do you think has made you the best pitcher in US history, basically? Like, is it your mental game? Is it your dedication to the technique and the technical side of things? Like, what would you say separates you from everyone else?
I think work ethic that I got at a really young age. My dad,
you're like, you I feel like you're amazing, and then you're like, no, I need to do better. Like, you just never feel satisfied.
Well, we never were satisfied, but I think, and you probably same way, people think you were like born out of the womb as this amazing athlete all of a sudden. And it's like, I learned to pitch and I was very average for a long time. And then everything clicked once I obviously grew into my body and everything else. And so once it clicked, then the work ethic I had established at a younger age, simply because I loved pitching, paid off. And so that coupled with mindset, I mean, I think if you can survive giving up 500 home runs in the driveway with your dad, then when you give up like one, it's not a big deal.
Yeah, you just shake it off.
But I say he's hard on me. He wasn't hard on me. He just had high expectations. So when we learned to pitch, he was there catching, and he would be, he would tell me if the spin was off, or if he thought one was spinning faster than the other, or if it broke more. And so just having that feedback, we were constantly trying to work to, be better.
Yeah.
And so I think couple all that, and then that has allowed me my ball spins at an incredible rate, which is what I'm known for. And why it's so much higher than some other people's, I'm not quite sure, but just trying to perfect that is really what has given me the ability to just play as long as I have, and not really have to change a whole lot.
I know. I just think it's incredible. So you, back to college, played freshman and sophomore year, blew it out of the water, and then you took a gap year to go to the Athens Olympics with Team USA.
Yes.
What was that experience like for you?
It was incredible. So they had told us in the fall of what would have been my junior year, they had said, if we made the team, if you made the roster of 15, you had to forego school. And then if you were an alternate, you had a choice to go back. And so my parents and I had a meeting with coach, and she's like, okay, you're just going to forego school. I'm like, well, no, if I'm an alternate, they said I could come back. And she's like, no, you're going to forego school. And I was just like, we haven't even had tryouts yet.
Really? So this was before, like, they were like, no, you're on the team. We want you on the team.
Well, I'm going to guess that. So Coach Clark, who was my head coach at Texas, had played for Coach Candrea, who was our national team head coach when he coached junior college in Arizona.
Okay.
Back in the 80s. So they had a relationship. So I had no clue at the time, just inferring now, knowing the coaching tree, like, I'm going to guess she called and was like, what's the likelihood? Like, I need to prepare my college team. So we get the likelihood? So yeah, they forego school, which was cool. But then when I was home from breaks, everybody was in school, and I'm like sitting in my apartment, just like, what do I do now? Like,
hanging out. Yeah. So you would go back to campus, but you just weren't taking classes.
Yeah. I wasn't taking classes. I could still practice with the team.
Okay.
And lift and stuff, but I was doing a different lifting program. So I usually lifted on my own. But yeah, I would go to practice, and that was about it. So I was kind of like semi living the professional life as a college non-student athlete at the point in time, just going to practice and then going home and hanging out.
Yeah, because they obviously, for people who maybe don't know this, they made you forego school because you were going to miss so much with traveling with the team. Yeah,
so when the spring hits, so when the college season starts, the national team tours, and when we tour, we play all the colleges. So yeah, starting in the beginning of February, I was going to be home like 5-6 days a month max. So
which is so crazy, huh?
It's really crazy. It's just, I look at it now and I'm like, how did we do that?
I know.
And on a bus, and I mean, we really bussed most places. We flew if it was like cross country, but other than that, we're driving this big old charter bus around.
Yeah.
But it was fun. I mean, we got to go almost all over the country. A lot of times it's some smaller towns where our softball game is the biggest thing that night. And so everybody's there. So the crowds were cool, and
that's super cool.
Interacting with fans and just seeing the excitement for our sport on the Olympic stage. That was, those tours, as grueling as they are just so fun to be able to see the support that the country has for our sport. So, and obviously, when you end it with winning a gold medal, that's the cherry on top. Totally worth it. That's when everyone's like, what's your best memory? I'm like, really? Does I need to explain this?
Exactly.
But it was cool because, especially for me being a college athlete, like obviously in college, we work hard. We go through the daily grind, and just being the youngest person on our roster of 15 to see the blood, sweat, and tears like fully pay off, and look back and be like, all right, all of that, like we weren't happy at the time, or we were annoyed that we were running in the rain and this and that. And it's just like, okay, but it was worth it. If it made us just a little bit better that day, it was worth it.
Absolutely. I agree. It's about the journey.
Yeah.
Make the most of it. And then, you get the reward at the end. It's all worth it. And you guys did, like you said, you won a gold. It was one of the most dominant runs in softball history. You beat Australia 5-1 to win gold. And their one run was the only one scored against Team USA that entire Olympics. It was like a historic defensive effort. And you personally led the team with 23 strikeouts. What was the actual Olympic experience like? It just sounds like it was the best possible situation, like winning outright every time.
Yeah, it was the best case scenario. I mean, well, we had trained the whole time, and coach's philosophy was we are going to be a well-oiled machine by the time we get over there. He's like, we're going to be the most fit team. We're going to be the most dominant team. Like, and that was the other kind of mantra, was like, we're not just playing to win, we're playing to dominate. And so that's what that team had. That's the mentality we had. And I don't think any of us thought going over there that it would unfold the way it did, as far as like not allowing a run till the final game and just literally putting up numbers that were incredible. But when you look back now, especially being older, like you can see that he prepared us for that. And so it was really, you walk on the field for the first time for your first practice, and it's just like, oh my God, it's the same softball field we've always played on. Like no dimensions are different or anything, but you just know it's the Olympic stage. And we opened with Greece that year for the first game, and all of us got mound time because they were like, well, we're going to get the nerves out now. And I remember when they put me in, I was like, this is awesome. And the whole world can watch. And then my first pitch bounced and went 2 feet like wide of the plate.
No way.
Yeah, I was so nervous. I've been nervous to where like you're shaking before you start throwing, but I think I was shaking the entire pitch. But after the first pitch, we settled in.
Yeah, I was actually going to ask how you handled it mentally. Like, were you like, okay, I got this, you're young, you've never been to the Olympics before, you're just enjoying yourself? Or were you like, oh my God, this is the Olympics? Like, it obviously sounds like it was.
Yeah, I was, oh my God, this is the Olympics. And it was. I just remember thinking the whole world can watch. Like, that was the one thought, like, not like the World Series where the country's watching, like totally. The whole world can watch now.
Yeah.
But then after that first game, I settled in, and thankfully, like they did a really good job in preparing, I felt, everyone for their role. So I knew I was pretty much going to throw our game against Japan. And then after that, probably just be relief and not start another game. So I was prepared for that, but I pitched our 8-inning game against Japan to give us the 1 seed. And that was kind of almost one of those flow state games, so to speak, until the end when we get a lead. And then all of a sudden I got nervous, and coach had to call timeout and come out to the mound and give me a nice lecture about, what are you doing? You have a 3-run lead. Can you
I was about to say, why'd you get nervous if you had a lead?
It was just like 8th inning. And when we go into the 8th inning, we start what they call international tiebreaker. So we start with a runner on second, just to try to speed the game up. And so anytime that happens, it's just nerve wracking. As a pitcher, it's annoying to have someone on second that didn't earn their way there, to be honest.
Yeah, sure.
But that's just one where you bunt them over, and then any fluke can score a run. And I don't think I put in perspective that we were 3 runs ahead. So if that run scored, who cared? But yeah, we ended up getting out of the inning fine and we won 3-0.
I was going to say, wait, so international rules,
Mm-hmm.
you have 8 innings.
No, so we have 7, but we were tied after 7. We hadn't, neither team had scored. Yeah. So
you were up by 3 runs.
We scored 3 in the top of the 8th. That's what I didn't explain that very well.
Yeah. But so they get to start somebody on second.
Yes. Like we did.
You guys get to start somebody on second?
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, we did too, and we ended up scoring 3 runs. And then we went to the bottom of the 8th and they got their person on second.
Okay.
And yeah, I think
so it was a tight game leading into that. Makes sense. That makes sense.
Tight game, last pool play game, like winner gets the 1 seed. It just put all of it on the 21-year-old shoulders.
Yeah, exactly.
It worked though. So it was a really fun game. And yeah, I think, that was probably the one thing, being young in that moment. Like I tensed up because I wanted to make sure we won, and they just needed to come out to the circle and give me a little lecture, and I was good. After that,
do you feel like you still get nervous when you pitch, or do you feel like you've mastered the mental side of nerves?
I get nervous a little bit, I think, but it's like the excitement nervous, like of playing the game again.
Totally.
There have been a few times since unretiring that I was nervous because I wasn't sure what the product was going to look like because I hadn't thrown for so long.
Yeah.
But I'm kind of past that now that I'm in a groove here.
Yeah, makes sense. How was winning a gold medal?
That's the best experience ever. I mean, you can win. For you guys, World Cup is a little bit bigger than our Worlds, but I mean, you can win other international events and hear your national anthem, and it's cool, but like nothing like it on the Olympic stage. And then the aftermath and the parties and all of that.
They're all right. They're a good time.
Yeah, they're all right. You don't sleep for like 3 days.
Exactly. I know. It is once. I mean, that's what people don't realize is that you win, you have all of this craziness, you don't sleep, and by the time you're going home, you're like, all right, I'm ready to go home. I need sleep. I need water. I need all of these things.
Right.
So you win a gold medal your junior year of college. You go back, you play 2 more seasons for UT, and you win 2 more Player of the Year awards, and you lead the team to 2 more College World Series appearances, all while breaking every record because you had already broken every record your sophomore year. And in your final win, you set a World Series record by striking out 18 batters in just 7 innings. So you basically have the most incredible, unprecedented career in UT history or college softball history. You're the first softball player to have their jersey retired at Texas, only the 3rd female in school history to have their jersey retired. So you basically just like are UT legend at this point, obviously Team USA legend too. Can you describe what that means to you?
I benefited in the fact that I went to Texas at like the glory years. I mean, both basketball teams went to Final Four, football won a national championship, baseball won 2 national championships, I believe, while I was there. Swimming and diving were the premier program. So it was one of those times that like everyone was winning. So you kind of thought you were just doing what everyone else was doing. I mean, well, you went to Stanford, y'all win the whatever cup every single year.
It's called, what is it called? Director's Cup. No, I was about to say, I feel similarly. You just you're expected to win. That's what it is. It's
exactly. And so I knew after my junior year that I was like, okay, I was conscious of the fact that my career was unfolding in a pretty incredible way. And obviously, you go around town and people who are fans recognize you and hi and this and that. And but when I left, I mean, that place is home. And so I think the cooler part of the story is they just started retiring women's jerseys last year. So they didn't retire. They retired plenty of men's jerseys, hadn't retired any females jerseys. And then Chris Del Conte became the athletic director there, and he changed that policy. And so they did it chronologically, which was kind of cool. So Cami Etheridge, who's a basketball player, got hers first, and she rightfully deserved it. It was one of the first Player of the Years for female athletics at Texas. But it was when he called to tell me that the jersey was going to get retired, I was like speechless. One of those things I had kind of hoped at some point in time that the procedures would change and it would get done. And I think when people are like, "Oh, you're a legend," I'm like, "No, that would be Earl Campbell and Ricky Williams and like these big football names and
which is
basketball
so
names."
annoying. It's like,
I know.
that. Thank God they changed that policy. Like, come on.
Yeah. I never really understood it, but I tried to just stay out of it. I know my grandma emailed like as soon as I was done. Bless her sweetheart.
It. Go grandma.
Yeah, bless her sweetheart. She emailed it a couple of times, I think, and I was like, "Oh God!" I'm like, "Dad, can you tell her to stop now, please?"
That's so good. Oh my gosh.
But it's cool. I mean, and you know, similar for you too at Stanford. Like, it's just such a rich athletic history and tradition that to have your name thrown around with what you deem the greats of that athletic organization it's just such an honor.
For sure.
I
totally agree with you.
People always ask, like, would you choose to go somewhere else? And I'm like, I don't know. I mean, Stanford was my number 2 choice. So yeah, my mom wasn't really thrilled that I said no to Stanford.
It's fine. My dad wasn't really thrilled I said no to UNC. So and went to Stanford instead. Talking about Stanford and my Stanford experience, we have a shared sadness that we both hold on to, or at least I still do, in that you never won the World Series and I never won the national championship. Do you feel like that affected you post college? Like, did you leave college with just a little bit of not regret, but just disappointment?
A little bit. I think my college coach always joked that I had this like running list of accomplishments I wanted to check off. And like, so she's like, she checked off everything but that. And I was like, you know, only one team can win every year. And while that would be great to do it, it's okay. Like, I eventually put it in perspective that it was okay. Like, it doesn't make the legacy or what I did for those 4 years any less because we didn't win a national championship. But
for sure.
But I mean, similar, yes, like that's what you wanted to do. And we got so close and it was just like, when was our time to bust through? And then again, being in an athletic department where everyone's winning, it's like, you want to bring one of them home. And
yeah, totally. No, trust me. I feel you on all of those things.
Yeah. That's what, when people are like, oh, what's the one thing? I'm like, we didn't win a national championship. Move on. Thank you.
I know. I'm like, I go through thinking, what didn't I win? And it, you know, there's not a chance to win it. You have 4 years and that's it. I mean, you had 5 kind of. Right. So yeah, it's a finite time period to win something, and then you never get a chance again, which is kind of a bummer. But like you said, doesn't take away from what you accomplished, what you did for that program, the legacy that you left there, which is absolutely incredible. And then leaving college, you were taken first overall in the National Pro Fast Pitch Softball League draft. For the listeners who aren't like familiar with the sport, can you describe what the professional scene looks like at this point in your career? Just kind of give us what you're getting into. Yeah.
So the National Pro Fast Pitch is a league that runs basically end of May till the beginning of August, kind of basically summer months. I was drafted to a team in Connecticut, ended up not signing because the national team was playing so much that summer. I just was like, I'm not going to spend my whopping 4 weekends off going to play more softball. Yeah. So I waited and then signed as a free agent to a team in Rockford, Illinois. At that time, we had 6 teams in our league, mostly all Midwest, East. There was 2 in Illinois, 1 in Ohio, and then 2 or 3 East Coast, kind of Northeast. And so we played through the summer months. That league has fluctuated between 6, 5, 4 international teams have come in and played. I retired from that in 2015. And then the current state of professional softball, the NPF is still, it's still going. Mm-hmm. They didn't play this summer because of COVID. But then we have this new venture that I'm actually currently playing in called Athletes Unlimited. for this year, we're right outside Rosemont. I think the plan is year to year to take it to different places. But the two CEOs, John Petrikoff and Jonathan Soros, have come up with this absolutely phenomenal way of playing sports. And it doesn't change it doesn't change the rules to the game or anything. Although if players really felt adamantly about changing some rule, we have the decision to do that if we wanted to, not mid-season, but like as seasons go. So this is pretty much, they came up with the idea, but the athletes run it. So we draft our own teams every week. Based on how you play, you get points. Based on whether your team wins innings or games, you get points. And at the end of every week, we're real time on TV and stuff. They show the rankings. But we get to redraft our team based on, whether you like somebody, whether you want somebody that's hot right now, whatever it is you choose. If everybody likes the same color, I guess, if you want. But, we get ranked and you get to go in and draft. And then the other part is at the end of the year, the very end of 6 weeks, our 6 weeks period, based on where you're ranked in the final rankings, we get bonus money based on that.
And so is each player individually ranked against others based on wins and points and that sort of thing? And then it's like the top players get to draft the teams, correct?
Yeah. So everyone gets ranked. So you could have a pitcher that may not even pitch that week, but if her team wins all the games, she may have more points than somebody that played every game.
Yeah.
It's just kind of the nature of the beast. And then, yes, the top 4 players get to draft their teams, and team colors go based on rankings. So the first player is team gold, second player is team orange, third player is team blue, and then fourth player is team purple.
Okay.
So if you stay 4, you'll always wear the purple jersey. And if you stay 1, you get to wear it's a navy jersey with gold writing, but you get to be team gold every week.
It sounds awesome. And I've been following along on social media. Have you enjoyed, you obviously said like you've thought this is a really cool concept. How did it come about?
So I'm not 100% sure. I know Jonathan Soros and John Petrikoff kind of wanted to do something different. And they actually are starting the same concept with volleyball in the spring, which I'm excited to see. I love indoor volleyball. So I'm like, hopefully COVID allows us to travel and go watch them play.
Yeah.
But they just wanted something that was different, that kind of engaged fans in a different way. They did some research and they've learned that, the fans these days don't necessarily stay loyal to a team. They stay loyal to an athlete. And so they were like, well, that way everyone's fans are still watching you play and you're on a different team each week. So they get to see something a little bit different. But, you think about it, if Mike Trout got traded, everybody who loves Mike Trout is still going to be a Mike Trout fan.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just how it is. And you have some diehards that might just be Yankee fans because they're Yankee fans. But at the same time, most people, especially younger generations, follow the athlete. And so with that in mind, they were like, well, let's make this athlete centered and then figure out how to come up with a creative way. And we have a point system based on offense, and then pitchers get points for the outs we record. You get points if your team scores more runs in an inning. And then obviously points at the end of the game if you're on the winning team. So it's been really fun. 56 athletes are up here. Well, we just added another one this week, so 57 of us. And I think, unfortunately, COVID has kind of made us live in a bubble, like NBA and WNBA, although they call it our shield. I'm like, okay, whatever. We wanted a different term.
Yeah.
But it's just been incredible to see how many, like, I wouldn't have played with 2/3 of these girls if I hadn't done this, because they're all so much younger. Mm-hmm. And I would never have crossed paths with them without this kind of environment. And we have programs that come in. Abby Wambach, actually, her Wolfpack program, Shannon Box came in and did that whole presentation with us the first week we were here, which was really cool.
That's awesome.
I showed my age as the only player that knew Shannon's sister had played on the national team for softball.
That's funny.
That's what someone's like, do y'all know her sister? And I was like, oh, I do. Raising my hand, and everyone's looking, and I'm like, okay.
Cool. Put this back down.
But they've done some programs with us. They did some financial programs for some of the athletes if you wanted to listen in and kind of start learning about savings and retirement and this and that. And so they're doing a lot to not only give us a great playing environment, but like help you grow and help you build different platforms and different avenues.
For sure.
And
give you the
again,
on-field experience, but then also all the off-field things that come with it.
So that way, you know, they're earning money here. Okay, well, how much can I invest? What taxes, all of that kind of stuff, that, you know, sometimes you just get hit in the face with when all of a sudden you earn a check for the first time.
Exactly. No idea what's about to happen.
Yeah.
Oh man. It sounds awesome. And I'm really excited that this has been rolled out and it's been so successful, and that you as a athlete are enjoying it. Because I feel like there's so many different ways that you can structure leagues and teams and, you know, that sort of thing, that I like the creativity behind it. I find I mean, no one else has done something like this, which is really cool.
Yeah. We keep saying it's like fantasy sports in real life.
Yeah, exactly.
Like you get a new fantasy team every week, but
yeah,
it's cool. I think a lot of us thought it was going to be way more individualized when you first hear about it. But then when you see that, like, you can almost get more points, you could go 0 for 3. Like a hitter can never put the ball in play and still walk out of there with 60, 70, 80 points if your team's winning.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So not to like rewind a ton, but to kind of explain, you know, obviously you're talking about Athletes Unlimited, which is what you're doing right now. And you're with Team USA getting ready for Olympics 2021. I was going to say 2020, sad, in Tokyo. But to rewind, and this is what I find so fascinating about your career, obviously the legend status is one thing, but going into 2008 Olympics, that was, before that, they had said that 2012 Olympics softball wasn't going to be in it. Correct?
Correct. So after in 2005, IOC came out and baseball and softball were eliminated from the Olympic Games following 08. So yeah, we knew going into 08 there was a finality, like boom, we're done. And we don't know when or if we'll ever get back in.
What was that like? I mean, I feel like if they were to ever take soccer out of the Olympics, I would be crushed.
Right. It was I think the worst part, it was like completely blindsided. I still remember, I was back, it was in the summer of 2005, and I was back in Austin hanging out with some of our baseball players, and it literally went across the bottom line of ESPN.
That's how you found out?
That's how I found out.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, that's how I found out. One of the baseball players was like, looks like your career is going to be ended sooner. And I'm like, what? And then it went across again, and I was like, no way.
Oh
and then
my gosh.
About 5 minutes after that, I think we got a text message from our communications director with the national team that was like, this just happened. Like, so I'm guessing they got blindsided too. And so, yeah, I mean, it made the next 3 years. I mean, you tried to soak it all up, but at the same time, you're playing this sport that has been, you know, a huge part of your life. I personally feel like it allows so many different types of athletes to be successful. You know, if you don't like running, you can come play softball and be a pitcher, and you don't have to run very much. But it was such a blindsided slap in the face. And I think for me personally, I'd probably decided, I'll play through 2012 and then I'll be done. And then it's like all of a sudden like, oh, okay, well, 2012 is not going to happen. So what are we going to do?
Did you at that point think, well, I'm going to play beyond 2008 because I'm still young. I'm going to play professionally. I'm going to do this as long as I, you know, still enjoy it.
Yeah. So I knew that the professional league existed, and I wanted to do that as long as possible. And so I wasn't sure after we got voted out 2008 how long I would keep playing, but actually got traded to a team in Florida called the USSSA Pride. And it was just a great situation and a great setup. Just how we were treated, how we were paid, everything. And so I ended up playing there well past what I thought I was going to play, to be honest. Somewhere in my head when I was younger, I was like, oh, I'll play till I'm 30 and then I'm done. Like, I guess I thought 30 was old.
Now we know better.
Yeah, now we know better. And so I played till I was 34, 35.
And
so then retired.
2008 Olympics, go into it being like, this is the last hurrah, essentially. You don't know if it's going to come back. And you guys end up winning silver.
Yes.
Against Japan. You guys lose to Japan in the final.
Yeah.
Ken still talks about that game.
It was terrible.
I know.
Terrible. That was
like
one
that,
of those...
did that make, I mean, did it make it even, I feel like this is, I can answer this for you. Did it make it even worse getting silver and knowing like, okay, that was my last Olympics?
Yeah, for sure. I think you put it, we won silver, but if you ask an athlete that's playing in that gold medal match, you like lose the gold medal. And that's
exactly.
How
you don't, it's like, you don't win silver. You
don't win silver. It's the consolation prize for not winning gold. And still you have to like convince yourself later or remind yourself later that that's still an incredible accomplishment.
For sure.
But yeah, it was hard because not only did we not win, it was almost a nightmare game, and anything that could go wrong did go wrong. Like,
I've heard that. Yep.
One of our best hitters hit into a double play twice, and I don't think I'd ever seen her do that. It's just, I gave up a home run on a pitch that I don't usually throw. Just anything and everything that could have gone wrong did. And it was just like, that's really how our Olympic story is going to end. It was brutal for quite a long time afterwards. The party that night was not as fun as 2004.
Oh my God. It's like sad. It's like beer tears, basically, just sad beer tears. So not to get ahead of myself, but you go on, you win 4 NPF championships from 2009, 2014. You have a successful, pro career. You have a gold medal. You end up retiring in 2015.
Yes.
And Ken, like I talked about earlier, our agent, talks about your retirement game and just being like, it just didn't feel right. Like, I can't believe that this legend of an athlete, of a softball player, retired in this fashion, like as opposed to going out in after a gold medal game or something like that. But then you unretire softball is now in 2016, they say softball's coming back in 2020. So how did you hear that news? Not on ESPN, I assume.
No, I didn't hear that on ESPN. Probably on social media though. So they had formed the World Baseball Softball Confederation that was pushing to get the sport back in the games. And I think somewhere, I don't know if it's always been this way but the host country gets to pick 2 sports. And so obviously baseball, softball are both very popular in Tokyo. Yep. So that was the push, was, okay, Tokyo's hosting the Olympics, let's get it back in. And so they chose, and I think they put out a post. We got an email from USA Softball. Like, we actually got notified better than the bottom line of ESPN. But at that time I still wasn't thinking about playing. I was like, really? Oh, that's cool. I was like, that's cool. The next, there'll be another generation of softball players that get to go compete in the Olympics. And, I wasn't missing playing. I was coaching and I loved coaching. And then Coach Erickson, our head coach for the national team, asked me to put my resume in for the coaching pool. And I was like, okay.
For Team USA.
Yeah, for Team USA. And I was like,
you go, no. I still got it.
I was like, why? And he's like, will you please just do it? And I'm like, okay. So I did it. And then when they announced the coaching staffs for the national team and the junior team, I wasn't on either one. And I wasn't really upset. Like, part of me was like, why'd you force me to put my resume in if I wasn't going to be chosen? But, oh, whatever. But then that got my wheels spinning, because I'm like, if I'm not upset that I didn't get chosen, why am I keeping my resume in there anyways? So, and I had the wheels had also started me saying, why am I going to coach the team when I think I could probably still throw? And I think I made that statement to one of my best friends, and she was like, well, then go throw.
I love that.
And I was like, excuse me? She goes, you want to. And I was like, quit reading my mind right now.
Sometimes you need somebody else to tell you exactly what you're thinking.
And she did. She pushed, and I said, I didn't want to have to resign and lose my job. And she had actually worked with me at Texas State University a couple years before that. And so she basically told my boss, who had been her boss, she was like, she wants to play, but she's afraid that she's going to have to resign. And so when my boss was like, hey, we'll make it work, I was like, oh, okay, all right. And so 36 hours later, I walked into her office and said, just so you know, I'm going to start training.
I love that.
And so, yeah, in 17, the fall of 17, I decided.
You can pick it up if you need.
Oh, it's just my husband. I'll call him in a minute. They probably just finished their golf tournament. He's a golf coach. So.
Oh, nice.
So yeah, fall of 17, I decided, all right, I'm going to give this a go. And yeah, I called Ken and he was like, yes, this is how it needs to end.
Oh, I love it. Yeah.
And I was like, all right, well, get to work.
Yeah, exactly. Do
like,
your job, I'm going to do mine.
Between me and Kelley, you have your work cut out for you. Go to work.
So, I mean, it makes me, when I found this out, it made me so happy because I just feel like you weren't meant to end your Olympic career in 2008. And then, so you get the opportunity for 2020, COVID hits. What did you think when that happened? Honestly, you were one of the first people I thought about when the Olympics got postponed. I was like, man, I hope that she still like has it in her to like keep grinding for another year and be ready for when it actually happens.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that first. That's cool.
Yeah, really though, like you were one of the first people. I was like, man, because for me, it's kind of like I was playing, I'm going to play for a while after. And so I was like, for all the athletes that were gearing up for this specific time, I hope that the ones that maybe weren't going to, I don't know if I assume you're not playing after that would keep wanting to play, or be able to do it for another year. Cause so much goes into it.
Yeah. So much goes into it. So, I think the part that made it semi easier to put into perspective was I had already decided I was going to leave my coaching job because I wanted to start doing something else. Playing again just reminded me that the schedule of college athletics and softball running my life is not what I want 24/7. So, but so the funny part is we were on tour, NBA canceled or postponed their season. We practiced that night and then late that night, they call us into a meeting and they're like, book red eye home. We're postponing tour. And I really thought we were going to go home for like a month and then we'd be back on the road.
Same.
And no big deal. We'll just get this. I don't know. Maybe I didn't understand what was going on with coronavirus, although I don't know how we were supposed to understand anything with so much conflicting news coming back and forth. But, and then like 1 month and then obviously a couple weeks into that is when they made the announcement about the Olympics. And I understood from the fact that there are sports, and I've said it on a couple interviews, I could not have imagined being a swimmer or a track athlete that has to taper for events.
Exactly.
And not know when my trials are, not know, like, how am I supposed to train right now anyways if I can't get to a gym? I mean, I don't know what your setup is at your house, but I don't have an Olympic gym at my house.
Exactly.
I mean,
I was using a book bag filled with books. That's what I was doing.
I have 5, 10, and 15 pound dumbbells. So I was like, same thing, putting all the dumbbells in a bag to be able to try to lift that, like put it on your back and do some squats.
Yeah.
So like when you take away our opportunities to train, you can't have an Olympic Games to where every athlete's going to be at their top shape. And that's what you want. That's the spirit of the Olympics, is the best of the best competing. And so I knew it was I felt in my heart it was coming, and the day it was announced, I handled it well. But about 2 to 3 weeks afterwards, my husband laughed because I think for like a week straight, I woke up and said, I'm going to play softball for another year.
That was like the first thing on your mind.
I was like,
oh my God, I have to keep doing this for another
I'm going to do this for another 12 months. And there have been times where it's been hard and I'm like, I don't know. And he's like, you can do it. You'll be fine. And that's actually, this Athletes Unlimited opportunity came out of that, because if everything had gone as planned, I wouldn't be playing right now. I would be done. And we might be doing a podcast about winning an Olympics instead, which would be cool. But
hey, next year.
Yeah, we can swap stories.
For sure.
But there's been some bright spots that come out of it. But yeah, for a while, I mean, initially it was like, okay, let's just regroup, reschedule, like plan things out. And then I looked at it and it looked like a mountain of 12 months. And that's when it all hit. And I was just like, oh, I thought I was just like already almost up to the mountaintop. And now I got another one. But now that we're getting to play a little bit again, it's been a good refresher, and I'm playing better than I was on tour anyways. So I love it.
There you go.
Yeah. And so now I'm like, all right, bring on July. Can it get here a little bit faster?
What would you say the hardest part about becoming unretiring was?
I feel like
there's probably a lot of things.
There are. To be honest, the hardest part was the mental side. I think, and you could probably attest that like once you get a good mental, like a mindset and a good mental game, so to speak, like it's almost automatic when you're in game, and it can just turn on and off, and you can do what you need to do to deal with adversity. And I
100%.
thought that I would take the field again, and then like that mindset would just light switch on, and it wouldn't. Like I was coming off the field complaining about something, and my coach was like, first of all, you've pitched 2 games in the last 5 years.
Yeah.
Or 3 years. And he's like, so you're expecting to be perfect. Why? And I'm like, because that's what I expect. Isn't that what we're all supposed to expect? Yeah. You like preach the process to younger athletes, and then you just assume you're going to flip a switch and there's no process. And I was like, okay, I like had to go back to being like, okay, buy into the process, figure it out, let it develop again.
Totally.
But that was the hardest part, was just, I don't know why I thought I was just going to go out and mental switch, just flip on, here we go.
It was short circuited, maybe.
Yeah. It just needed, it had a little rusty. We just had to get the rust off to let everything circulate through.
Get flowing again. Oh
yeah.
Man. Well, I'm so excited to watch you next year and to crush it and to win a gold medal, because I know that you guys will. And I'm just so thankful, or like not thankful, but like happy that you get to have one last go at the Olympics. Like that's so cool. I feel like not many people in their career have had the highs and lows of like your sport's taken out of one of the biggest stages it can play on, and then it's reintroduced and you come out of retirement. It's just crazy. I feel like your story is, I love it.
Thanks.
Yeah. So thanks for, giving us this time today and sharing your story with us, because I feel like I said, I think it's such a cool sports story.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
Yeah,
I appreciate it.
So we have 2 more questions.
All right.
And it's our repeat questions that we do. So the first one is, they say, work hard, get lucky. How much of your success is predicated on luck?
Oh, I've listened to your podcast. So you like percentages?
I do. People like give scenarios and they talk about it. I'm like, okay, I need a number. I'm a numbers person.
No, I'm going to go 87% hard work, 13% luck.
I love the random numbers.
Yeah, I don't like that. Yeah, no. I think there's some things that like situationally there's a little bit of luck or something falls your way in all sports. I mean, soccer, own goals. I'm sure you're like that. You don't train for that. It just happens.
Yeah.
We don't practice like we call them blue pits, like that just kind of fall into no man's land. It's just like what happens. So there's some luck to it, but I think overall the hard work you put in is what really carries you. Yeah.
Sounds like it from talking with you today. You can always be better.
Yes.
Says Dad.
Yeah.
All right. So you've accomplished literally, I feel like everything, and are essentially the best of the best in what you do. So where do you go next? Which I guess we know. And you kind of talked about this already too. How do you keep pushing?
Yeah. Continue to train for Tokyo 2021. I almost said 2020 there too. I know, I'm like 2021. And then after that, I will have the opportunity to play Athletes Unlimited again next year if I want. So I'm going to see what that looks like. I mean, it's hard to say no when it's only 6 weeks and I'll have been in shape from Tokyo. So balancing that in my mind, but right now it's keep pushing because I get one last shot at the Olympics. And I think the other part of that is I'm surrounded by a bunch of younger athletes who thought they wouldn't have this opportunity. And so I feel like it's partly my responsibility to make sure I do everything I can to give us the best shot at winning an Olympic gold medal. So that way they get to experience what I already have once. And then obviously I would love to experience that too myself, but to be able to help this younger generation get the best experience out of the Olympics.
That's awesome. I love that. That's a perfect endpoint. So thank you
Thank
for
you
coming on and telling your story. This was awesome.
Yeah, appreciate it.